This episode of the Coarse Grind Podcast has been brought to you by Central Sports and Graphics Incorporated, family-owned and operated screen printing and embroidery business located in a historic storefront on Old Berwick Road in the heart of Espy. They've been doing screen printing for over 20 years. They have high-quality product at a low price. Be sure to check them out. Central Sports and Graphics Incorporated, 570-784-1212. Now, on to the show.
This is Michelle Minori, finalist from Bravo's Top Chef Season 16, and you're listening to Sean Rossler on the Coarse Grind Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is episode number 129 of the Coarse Grind Podcast. With you today, host creator Sean Rossler. How is everyone doing? You know, for as long as I've been at this show, I've never been much of one to toot our own respective horn, or what's more, rather, to point out when we've been on a roll. But year 5, this is the 5th year we've been doing it, well past 100 episodes. The breadth and the depth of the stories I've been able to share as part of the show has been amazing. And in those, there's always ones you hope for, always ones you strive for, and most tend to not happen, and that's okay. But today's guest is one of those, and he was kind enough, accommodating enough to say yes and to spend some time with us, giving us a W for the home team indeed. To say this man is an icon is a marked understatement. It's safe to say that he's either co-authored or rewritten what there is to know about grilling, barbecue, and the like. He is, by his own site's admission, the man who reinvented modern barbecue. Timely for those stay-in-place backyard grilling sessions, isn't it? He's authored 31 books, including most notably Project Smoke, How to Grill, Planet Barbecue, and Project Fire. Yes, there's shows of the same name in there, too. His books have won 5 Beard Awards and 3 Julia Childs, all of which spanning 17 different languages. He's written for the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and Esquire, to name a few, and was inducted into the Barbecue Hall of Fame in 2015. Even his programs are going global, with Stephen Raichlen Grills Italy being broadcast on Gambero Rosso in Italy. Add to all of this that he's the founder of Barbecue University at Broadmoor Resort and has lectured on the history of barbecue at, little-known places such as Harvard, the Library of Congress, and the Smithsonian. Yes, you can safely say this man is the personification of all things barbecue. Having watched the man for years, this is indeed one for the record books, and I admittedly could go on with accolades, but in the interest of the man's time and all of your collective listenership's education, let's get right down to it, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between. My guest today, author, journalist, lecturer, TV host, and the authority on all things barbecue, Stephen Raichlen. Stephen, how are you, sir?
I am great, and thank you for the lovely introduction.
I could have gone on, and I
no wonder I'm so tired.
That's right. There we go. We're gonna wrap it up. Put it in the can. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. Yours is such an interesting story, and just doing my homework for the episode, I know some things. I'm going to leave them to you to share, but I mean, first of all, the content is just so incredible, and folks listening, folks who maybe haven't been introduced to Stephen's body of work, go out, find it today. If you have a grill, you have a big green egg, and I know that there's a lot of people, who have these now, which is awesome. It's good. It's showing the evolution of it. Go out and buy Stephen's books if you haven't done so already. Trust me. They're gonna make your protein game that much stronger. But again, I digress. This isn't an ad spot. This is about the man himself who's here with us today, folks. New to the program, folks with terrible short-term memories like myself. We're gonna tuck into the starters first. We're gonna talk about where the guest came from. We're gonna move on to mains. We're gonna talk about what they're doing, where they're at, maybe what's coming up. And after is a little bit more irreverent, a little more off the cuff questions, but no one's been injured in 128 episodes, so I don't see that happening today. So, without further ado, Mr. Stephen Raichlen, would you please tell us all where and what you grew up eating?
Oh boy, I was a child of the 50s. I did not grow up eating great stuff. I was a TV dinner kid. except when we would grill, and my mother was the family grill mistress, and she would take a steak, she'd light the charcoal with gasoline, pass the steak over it, be coal black on the outside, the heart still beating inside. We called it Pittsburgh Rare.
Yes,
and that was my notion of barbecue.
Nice. And given your backstory that, you were the TV dinner child of the 50s, and, I think there's definitely, a culinary track that fits in there. Would you say you were a picky eater despite that, or were you pretty open to new things?
No, when I was young, I was a picky eater. And, the other kind of component of my gastronomy growing up, I had parental level, grandparental level, okay. Extended family, aunts and uncles, wonderful Jewish cooks. My aunts were wonderful Jewish cooks, and we'd have incredible family dinners with 30, 40, 50 people, holiday dinners, and with matzo balls and gefilte fish, and that was all just amazing stuff. So no, I wasn't a particularly finicky eater.
No, that's good. That's great. And I mean, it sounds like you were surrounded by culinary. Even if you were in the TV dinner track, you still had these surroundings that kind of fed into that. Are there outside of the matzo ball, the gefilte fish? Are there foods that you look back to, from your childhood that, maybe you think of fondly, maybe you even try to recreate them today?
Well, I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, and Baltimore is the home of the Maryland steamed crab. And that to date is still my ultimate favorite food. If I'm ever allowed to pick my last meal, it would definitely be Maryland steamed crabs, not barbecue.
That's a preview of a question to come. So hang on to that. That's going to be coming up later.
Okay.
The Maryland crab, my family and my in-laws, we used to go to Ocean City every year, and we go to the crab shack. I forget the name of it now, but where you get the wooden mallets, they bring out the basket, and there's just something. I know that the thematic of Primal goes with grilling, but I almost feel like that hammer, the mallet, the paper, that felt primal too. I mean, it tastes wonderful, but it was definitely an experience.
Oh, absolutely. And, I guess one of the things that has draws so many of us to barbecue is it's some of the last food in the 21st century that you still eat with your fingers. So there's something very primal about it.
Absolutely. And, so you go from child of the 50s TV dinner, and you come to be truly and honestly, and this is not me just blowing smoke, it's a grilling joke, the go-to authority on barbecue. There had to have been somebody who influenced you so strongly to make you want to do that. Who was that for you, Stephen?
Well, there are a couple of intermediary steps. I got my degree in French literature at Reed College in Portland, Oregon. Talk about a nice practical degree. That was back in the days when people didn't really worry so much about degrees that could make them money. And when I graduated, I won a Thomas J. Watson Foundation Fellowship. Now, Tom Watson founded IBM. These fellowships were for a year's independent study abroad after college, only string attached, it couldn't be academic. So I had proposed to study medieval cooking in Europe. Why medieval cooking? I wrote my thesis on an obscure medieval French poet named Christine de Pizan, who turned out to be Europe's first feminist. But in my 20-something male brain, that feminist message pretty much went over my head. However, while I was doing my research, I came across a medieval cookbook in the stacks at the Library of Reed College. And my mind was blown away, by the thought that here was a cookbook that was written by hand and that somehow had survived for 700 years and was now published in facsimile, and that people, of course people have always cooked, but that they wrote down recipes, that they, had a body of techniques, they had an aesthetic. It blew my mind. So at any rate, I had this idea to propose medieval cooking in Europe. I should add parenthetically that all of my jobs in college were food related. I always loved food. I guess maybe it was a way to sort of get beyond those TV dinners. But always fascinated obsessed by food. Yeah. So during that Watson year, I spent a year and a half in Europe researching medieval cookbooks in the great libraries in England and France and Germany and Italy. I actually at one point retraced the path of the Crusades because a lot of the spicing in the Middle Ages returned with the Crusaders who went to the Middle East, discovered spices like galangal and cubeb, and brought them back to Western Europe where they were incorporated into the cuisine. And that whole year kind of got me thinking about the intersection of food and history and culture. And I decided to make that my life's work. So I moved back to Boston after my 2 years in Europe, and I became the restaurant critic for Boston Magazine, and then the wine and spirits editor for GQ Magazine. And one day my mentor, who was a woman that ran a cooking school in Paris called La Varenne, where I also trained because I thought, in order to make sense of these medieval recipes that I'm finding these medieval cookbooks, I ought to understand the kind of theory and practice of cooking. So a French culinary school was really good for that. Sure. So one day my mentor, Ann Willen, said to me, Stephen, you'll never make a living writing cookbooks. So bing! Of course, the gauntlet was thrown down.
Challenge
and I thought,
accepted.
okay, I got to make a living writing cookbooks.
Yep.
So I started writing cookbooks, and I guess it probably took me 6 or 7 that didn't make money to finally get my first idea that did make money. And at the time, I had moved from Boston to Miami to marry my wife, and I wrote a book called Miami Spice. It was about the New Floridian cuisine, and that book, introduced me to Workman Publishing, and it was at that point that my cookbook career really started.
And that Miami Spice won a Julia Child, correct?
And yes, that's right, won a Julia Child. In fact, Julia Child gave me the award and gave me a big kiss on stage.
Oh my God!
But I had known Julia Child pretty well. First I met her in France. And then we both lived in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So I remember the little Volkswagen Jetta she rode around with a sauce whisk that was wired to her the car antenna.
Unbelievable.
She was a character. She was one, not only she was a character, but she was also a wonderful human being.
This is, and it's so weird that these interviews are clustering a bit together. A couple episodes ago, I had Chef Art Smith on. And he too befriended Julia. I'm not sure which direction the friendship went. And, the same story, just the wonderful, quirky, everything as prompt. That's so incredible. And so, looking at your site, by the way, StephenRaichlen.com, BBQBible.com.
Those are the two, right?
Miami Spice, the cover, man, you can't miss that. That is so indicative of the time period and of Miami cuisine. It's such a pretty cover.
Thank you.
So for folks interested, go out, check out his site. And again, we're gonna go over the listings, folks, because there's a lot of them. Talk about taking a challenge and setting them straight, Stephen. I think you took that challenge and not only succeeded, but I think surpassed probably your own expectations. I don't know of what kind of a living you could make writing cookbooks. And we go from writing cookbooks to making shows, and that's honestly how I found you on our local public television affiliate is WVIA, and their Create channel. That's where they have all the fun stuff where you make stuff, and that's where I came in to know you and came in to know Project Smoke, and just an incredible body of work. And so you discover this medieval cookbook, you get this challenge, you write these 31 cookbooks.
Just finished number 32, by the way.
Oh, he did. Can we know the name, or is that top secret?
No, sure. Well, I'll tell you the working title, because books rarely get the title that wind up with the title that you think they're going to have. But
sure.
The working title is called Grilling Green, and it's a vegetable-forward grill book. It's not vegetarian because there is a little meat in it in certain recipes, but I'd say it's 90% vegetarian.
Nice.
But it's really a look at sort of how you grill vegetables, eggs, bread, tofu, etc., fruit, etc.
Now, see, you say veg, and yeah, we finally got down to a substantial vegetable garden last year, and we were overrun with jalapenos and tomatoes, and so I started making a smoked hot sauce where I would, put them in a grill basket, and obviously there's a technique to that, but you mentioned grilling eggs. What goes into that?
Well, there are many ways to grill and smoke eggs. The simplest is start with hard-boiled eggs and put them in a smoker, or rig up a smoker on your charcoal grill. Mm-hmm. And I got to tell you, a smoked hard-boiled egg in terms of making egg salad or deviled eggs, there is just nothing better. Mm-hmm. Now, it's funny you should mention, we were talking about medieval cooking earlier. Mm-hmm. There's a dish in Thailand and Cambodia, and if you see it, you'll see it very often at from street vendors, and it looks like 3 eggs impaled on a bamboo skewer, blackened over a charcoal fire, and they are grilled eggs. And I first found a recipe for grilled eggs in a medieval cookbook by a man named Tayevo, written in around 1375. And that book has the distinction of having been in print for continuously since 1375. Wow. So pretty amazing feat, actually, if you think about it.
Wow. Yeah.
Anyhow, when I read the grilled egg recipe, I thought, this is just some of the, part of the theatrics that you find in medieval cooking, because medieval cooking was very theatrical. And then I see this analog in Cambodia 750 years later. And I won't tell you the trick. You have to get the book to get to the trick, but you actually do grill the eggs in their shells on a bamboo skewer, and it's totally amazing.
That's incredible. So, working title, Grilling Green.
Grilling Green.
Veg forward, right. Not meat averse, but definitely...
Not meat averse. I'd say there's meat in about maybe 10% of the recipes.
Okay. Wow, we like that. Especially, in today that seems to be the direction people are going. I'm thinking you didn't put grilled bug protein in there, grilled insect, but... Maybe I'm wrong?
No, I didn't. I mean, I've certainly had, most insects are deep fried rather than grilled. I guess maybe they grilled grasshoppers in some parts of China. But, I actually wanted to sell a few copies.
Yeah, exactly. That's a surefire way to get people to maybe look the other way. But that's incredible.
That's a heavy lift.
Yes, it is. Yes. Well,
mind you, I'm not saying, given food insecurities and shortages, I'm not saying we're not going to get there at some point, but right. I don't want to be the one to take us there.
No, absolutely. But if we are going to go there, I can think of a few other people I'd like to lead that barbecue charge rather than yourself, sir. So let's talk about Stephen Raichlen here and now, working on the 30-second book. Obviously, still just embedded in the barbecue grilling culture. As you start to look at these recipes and think of others and work with ingredients, where is it that Stephen Raichlen draws inspiration from? Now, I think you've kind of given us a little spoiler with regards to that medieval, cookbook. Obviously, history dictates present. Where else do you draw inspiration from, Steve?
Well, that's a really good question. So, and it's many sources. It used to be travel. I mean, for, I'd say the first 9 or 10 of my barbecue books, first thing I would do when I signed a new contract is I'd pack a suitcase. Yeah. And in books like Barbecue Bible and Planet Barbecue, I mean, you think I'm up to somewhere around 70 countries around the world that I have visited researching barbecuing and grilling. Okay. Not to mention every state in the Union, and extensively in Canada and Mexico. To work on books like BBQ USA and Project Smoke, Project Fire. So that is one big source of inspiration. Mm-hmm. A second big source of inspiration is ingredients. And funny, I was reflecting, like everybody, I've been home more than usual and sort of taking the time to catch up, to kind of clean out and sort out, and found a lot of books on exotic fruits and vegetables, which is a topic I wrote a lot about in Miami Spice many years ago. Mm-hmm. Well, it turns out so many of those exotic fruits and vegetables are now part of our daily regimen. And we Americans, we have this wonderful ability to embrace and incorporate foods, flavors, ingredients, techniques from all over the world and make them our own. So ingredients, that's a second piece, and I will give you an example of that. Like everybody, I've been mail ordering in food a lot, and I just got a shipment of fresh fava beans in the pods over the weekend. And I'm just sort of tinkering around with them. Usually you shuck them and then boil them. But I thought, well, how about let's coat the pods with extra virgin olive oil, coarse sea salt, pepper, and chopped fresh oregano, and then grill them in the pods, char the pods, so they get kind of a smoky flavor. So that's a recipe that's going to appear in the Grilling Green book. I call it Tuscan edamame.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, spoiler alert. I love it. Tuscan edamame. Awesome. Mm-hmm. Awesome. So, yeah, I mean, and it's clear. Listen, when you watch the shows, folks listening at home, as soon as Steven walks on the set, you're about to get an education. I've never seen somebody be so much about something as you. And, obviously, your pedigree speaks to that. Harvard Library of Congress speaking about the history of barbecue. And so it comes as no surprise that you're inspired by literally everything around you. Through that inspiration, you've obviously created just an incredible array of applications of grilling, of barbecue, of ingredients, of recipes. If you had to name a favorite recipe that you've made over your incredible career, what would the favorite be?
Oh boy, that is a real toughie because there have been so many. But I think it's probably, if I had to pick one, it would probably be my caveman T-bone. And for those of you, if you haven't heard of it, what you do is you take a nice 2-inch thick T-bone steak, you season it very assertively, and you lay it directly on the glowing coals of your charcoal grill. You grill it right in the embers. You fan the embers first to knock off any loose ash. And I love it because, first of all, it's so primal. It reminds us, that barbecuing and grilling gave us our kickstart on this long road of evolution to modern man. We're the only animal that cooks. When we discovered grilling, our brains quadrupled in size, and we really went from upright ape to man. But I also love it because the flavor is so incredible. You get a micro-charring, a smoky flavor, a crust on the steak you just simply can't achieve with any other method. It's also extremely theatrical, and, let's face it, of all the cooking methods, grilling is the most theatrical. You bake a loaf of bread, you cook a pot of soup, nobody gathers around the stove to watch that, but you fire up your grill, you are the center of attention, and it becomes an instant party.
Now you're right. Yeah, man, when the man is right, the man is right. And that makes total sense, and I can just imagine, because people's first reaction has to be, and I'm sure you've made this for folks who didn't know what you were doing right up front, like, oh my God, you can't do that. Why would you put that on there?
Well, I remember the first time I made it myself, I thought, I'm not really doing this. This is a $40 hunk of meat. I'm not really going to incinerate it on the coals, but you know what? It was really great.
That's incredible.
The French have this saying, you can't make an omelet without breaking the eggs, and sometimes you have to experiment on stuff, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't, but,
Yeah. Well, to that point, incredible as it's been, there had to have been something you've made where it was like the biggest, oh my goodness, no moment. Like what was maybe the least favorite? Least favorite isn't even what I want to go for here. Like your biggest oops, dish-wise.
Well, I'll tell you what. So this was a dish that I've made many times, and it's actually for many years was sort of an iconic dish. And normally it works out great, but I was on a different grill I was actually doing a photo session for the Washington Post and National Public Radio at the same time in Washington, D.C., and I managed to set a beer can chicken on fire. Now, beer can chicken, for those of you, I mean, if you've been in Siberia for the last 40 years, what you do is you smoke roast a chicken in an upright position over an open can of beer. It's very theatrical. And I was not the inventor of the dish, but I was the person that brought it from the backwaters of barbecue into the sort of modern American mainstream. And it's a great way to cook a chicken. It's very theatrical because the upright position, the skin gets crisp all around it. It stays nice and moist. Mm-hmm. But I was working on a new grill that oddly had had the smoker box positioned in the center of the grill, not off to one side. It did catch on fire. However, when you're grilling, it's really a 5 sense kind of process. Obviously your smell, your taste, your sight, your feel, but also sound. And there was a noise coming from the grill that didn't sound quite right. So I opened it up. Happily, I caught it in time. I blew out the fire. I dusted the chicken with chopped rosemary. I said, this is how they do in Tuscany. And it came out delicious, but, it was given the audience, it was kind of embarrassing.
That is fantastic. No, we are massive fans of the beer can chicken. We have 2 racks, and it's one of the best ways to cook a chicken on a grill. I think it's just delicious. And just juicy to no end. So, there's your up, there's your down. If we look at the grilling landscape, if we look at barbecue, as a landscape, I think with your working title of your cookbook, Grilling Green, I think there's kind of an indicator here, but I'll ask the question anyway. Trend-wise, like what's going to be the next big thing in grilling?
So, well, I think one thing that's right now primarily a restaurant phenomenon, but I think is going to hit the home market pretty soon and pretty hard, are these new meatless burgers like Beyond Burger and Impossible Burger. And I think they're going to be a big thing for at least 3 reasons. I mean, one, people, we're kind of funny things are happening. So I think in a way we're eating less meat, but we're eating better meat. And millennials, I think, are eating less meat. And 2, these burgers are really good. I mean, to me, a Beyond Burger is as good as any fast food burger I've ever experienced. Nice. They're better for the planet. There's some question how much better for you they are, although I think probably they are better simply because there's not as much saturated fat and as much, what goes into a fast food burger you don't want to know about. Sure. And 3, now with COVID-19, I think there are going to be some major disruptions to our meat supply because the big meat packing plants and commodity beef places were kind of slow to really take the virus seriously. So there have been shutdowns of some very big meat plants. Yeah. So I think that's going to be a trend. I think grilling green is definitely going to be a trend. There's a trend we've been witnessing for several years now, which is multiple grill ownership, where one of those grills might be a smoker. Smoking has been hot for a while now, but I think that's certainly going to be increase in drama. Grilling around the clock, and I've done that for a long time. In my book Project Fire, I opened the book up with a chapter on grilled breakfast. We ran a blog on barbecuebible.com a couple of weeks ago on grilled breakfast, and it was one of our most popular blogs ever. Awesome. Now, admittedly, I've got a captive audience, as we're all sort of captive at home now.
Yes, true.
But I think, so I'm very sanguine about the future of grilling and barbecue.
Awesome. How about a trend in grilling and barbecue? And I imagine you would be the go-to for this question that you're just ready to see go away. What is something that everybody's still doing that you wish they would just stop?
I don't really have an answer to that. I mean, to me, it's all about pleasure. It's all about making things that make you and your family happy. I mean, I could sort of be tempted to say that beer can chicken has been overdone, but you know what? You just described it. You just say you love it. I'm sure that eyes pop and jaws drop and
Yes.
Chops get licked whenever you serve it. So, no, I don't think there's anything that needs to go away.
Now, especially with 3 young boys too who love watching it, it is truly it's better than TV for them, and certainly more nutritious.
Well, good.
So that's incredible. And then again, book number 32, Grilling Green, is up next. Are there other future plans going on that we should know about?
Well, a few years ago, I wrote a novel. It's called Island. Well, actually, it's called The Hermit of Chappaquiddick now. It's available on Amazon. And it's a love story, a foodie love story set on Martha's Vineyard, which is where I live part of the year. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoyed writing that novel. And I think that maybe the next project I will do after this one, I got an idea for another novel, so I think I might work on that.
Excellent. So we'll be definitely looking for that. Definitely looking for Grilling Green out there on StephenRaichlen.com. So that brings the mains to a close. Finally, just a couple afters, just to kind of pick your brain a little bit more into the who completely is Stephen Raichlen. I'm standing... Typically, this question reads in your kitchen, but I'm going to say I'm standing by your grill.
Okay.
Tell me what music you have playing.
Well, that's a very interesting question. So much as I love music and I used to be in a rock band, most of what I listen to today are foreign language radio stations. I've been trying to teach myself. I speak Italian. I speak it badly, but I speak Italian. I did a TV show in Italy a couple of years ago. So every day, and I'm pretty fluent in French, and I've been learning Spanish. So I would say whenever I'm listening to anything, it tends to be either Rai Radio from Italy or France Info from France. Nice. Or I'm doing this wonderful Pimsleur language course. If anybody wants to learn a language, Pimsleur's the app to get. That's Pimsleur. I've been doing the Spanish. So that's pretty much what I tend to listen to.
Awesome.
When it is music, like when I'm with my wife or whatever, we're big Bob Dylan fans. So
nice.
It's most likely Bob Dylan.
Awesome. Okay. Hypothetical situation, and I would venture to guess before you answer that out of 129 guests, you're going to have the most practical and best answer to this ever. We're going to strand you on a deserted island, and you can only take 3 foods or food type items with you. Limitless supply through the magic of imagination, but only 3. What would they be and why?
Okay, so, and and it's a deserted island, right?
Deserted island.
So I'm surrounded by salt water, right?
Yes.
Okay, so the first one I'm going to take is extra virgin olive oil. Mm-hmm. The second one I'm going to take is lemon juice. Mm-hmm. The third one I'm going to take is some sort of hot chili. Let's say jalapeno, just to be, kind of ecumenical.
Beautiful.
And I'm not going to take salt because I can evaporate the seawater to make my own sea salt. And I'm not going to take pepper because I think there's more versatility. I've got the heat from the jalapenos, but then I've also got the flavor from the jalapenos.
There you go. And you could gather all the protein you needed from the wildlife on the island in the water.
Yep.
Absolutely. A man after my own heart right there. That's fantastic. So getting back to the steamed crab answer before, your Last Supper, Melanie Denea did a wonderful book and then a follow-up book, My Last Supper and the Next Course. Beautiful photography, similar questions asked to each famous chef. Your ticket's getting punched tomorrow. What's your last meal and why? So I ask you, Stephen Raichlen, what would your last meal be?
Well, Maryland steamed crabs, as I said,
sure.
As I said earlier, and that's because I love the flavor. It's the food I grew up with. Crab is so sweet. The peppery paste on it is so fiery. And also, it takes forever to eat Maryland steamed crabs. I mean, so if you're doing this the night before your execution, and they're going to let you finish your meal. I mean, you could drag that out several days.
Oh my God, that's the best answer ever. That's fantastic. I never even considered that. But here again, that's why you're you and I'm me, sir. That is awesome. Just awesome.
Did I understand? Did I hear you say earlier you're a teacher, by the way? Or you were a teacher?
A former educator, instructional designer. Basically, teaching has been through my whole life. So,
well, I just want to give you kudos then, because in my opinion, teaching is the most sacred and honorable profession. And God forbid if I were ever president, which is a job I would never, ever want, I'm going to switch all the teacher salaries with the salaries that are earned by the hedge fund guys.
Absolutely.
So Goldman Sachs they're going to get the teacher salaries. You guys are going to get the hedge fund salaries.
Thank you, sir. No, and I'll tell you, I've been out of it for a while, both secondary and higher ed, and now just having 3 boys in 7th, 4th, and kindergarten, respectively. Boy, if I didn't believe it then, I believe it now. So you're definitely preaching to the choir there. That's absolutely. Let's let those hedge fund and senator guys just hang around on $35 a year and see how they fare. But
yeah,
I digress.
Right, really.
I digress. And finally, sir, the last question, the simplest question, but the deepest. Food to you in a single word, Stephen Raichlen.
Well, to me in a single word, I'm going to say creativity.
I love that.
And that's not perhaps what most people think of. Most people might think of sustenance or community or, but for me, I guess food has always been it's been an aesthetic thing, and it's been a vehicle for creativity. And I guess for me, one of the highest goods, people can teach, people can care for other people, which these days, and, is certainly the most important, but to create, to make something new and make something beautiful is, to me, I think that's a very great good in life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Creativity. You heard it here from the man himself, the icon behind grilling and barbecue, and the new book forthcoming, Grilling Green, Mr. Stephen Raichlen. I'll get some plugs in here real quick for folks. StephenRaichlen.com is where you want to go to both learn about the programs and the books. If you go to the shop section and go to cookbooks, they are, a lot of them are there. I'm sure, for those of you doing the Amazon thing, go out, find them there. But Stephen's site has it all. There's other
and if I may say, BBQ-Bible.com, the Stephen site's more about the shows and about me. Mm-hmm. BBQ-Bible.com is really more about my world of barbecue. And
absolutely.
You can sign up for, I've got a newsletter that called Up and Smoke. It's a bi-weekly newsletter that, where we give you lots of recipes, techniques, tips, what I'm grilling, what I'm thinking about. Also, if you follow me on Facebook, Stephen Raichlen, every day there's a blog, and lately there have been a lot of blogs on what I'm cooking at home in confinement. So,
absolutely.
So lots of stuff there.
Yeah. To Stephen's point, BBQ-Bible.com, I just got into the hardware section, and my wife's going to have a tough time dealing with me now. A barrel cooker, smoking gun, anything you could possibly need is out here on BBQ-Bible.com. And I'm only looking at one page, so I'm going to be looking at this later, but I encourage all of you to do the same. StephenRaichlen.com, BBQ-Bible.com, on Instagram, on Facebook. He's all over the place, kids. And your local public television affiliate will likely carry Project Smoke. If you have the Create variety, that's where ours is. And it's just incredible talking with you, sir. Thank you so much for spending the time with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been episode number 129 of the Coarse Grind Podcast. I can't even talk. I'm so excited still. With me today has been the Stephen Raichlen. Our producer, as always, has been the lovely, voluptuous Johnny Leland Robinson, a.k.a. the Reverend Johnny Lamoria. Be sure to check out his Cinematic Pigs Feet podcast, along with all his artistic offerings, over on the Insta. The next episode's going to be 130. Stay tuned. Are you passing through Central Pennsylvania and looking for one of the best dining experiences and craft brew menus around? Look no further. Turkey Hill Brewing Company and 991 Central Road in Bloomsburg, PA has everything you could ask for and then some. Service, food, beer together. Unbelievable. Be sure to check them out. Call them today for reservations. 570-387-8422. Call today.